And we are back with another episode of the Hockey Princess podcast. I am your host, the Hockey Princess. We got Crusty, old guy again. Just as a reminder, make sure to hit that like and subscribe on either Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, however you watch or listen to us ramble on a weekly basis. We got some trades, we've got some signings, and we've got the final week of our predictions going into the next season, and that will be your Central Division. Let's get into it. I really hate that I've been able to use this banner now twice within 2 weeks. There's news in St. Louis, guys. We talked about the offer sheets that Holloway and Broberg were given by the St. Louis Blues. Holloway and Broberg originally played for the Edmonton Oilers. We kind of explained that they had up until August 30th to match. Edmonton did not match. We kind of figured this a little bit before it was officially announced because Broberg and Holloway were taken off of the Edmonton Oilers roster online. So people saw that and kind of just assumed that Edmonton was not going to match them. So now Broberg and Holloway are your newest St. Louis Blues.
They are. First off, it's pretty cold out. Just like all your listeners to know that. I'm in shorts and a t-shirt, but it's a little chilly. Yeah, there's especially out here in Chicago, nationwide too. There's a lot of Stan Bowman. What is he doing? Stupidest maneuver ever. Blah 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 blah. I really don't have a problem with either one. As I said, I would have taken Holloway. I can't understand how Broberg could have went back into that locker room. From that point, I don't see how you bring him in. You're a Stanley Cup contender. Your best defenseman has been a team player and taking peanuts. And he's going to watch this guy come back into the locker room making $1 million more than him. And you expect everything to be fine? No way. No way. It's just not going to happen. I don't think the team would have welcomed him back. Because everybody there knows that Bouchard has been waiting his time. He's the guy. He's an incredible defenseman, and you're getting so. I don't know what they expected Stan to do. Did you really expect him to sign him and bring him into the... it doesn't work like that. No. So I did not have a problem with it. Yes. Did they get fleeced? Yeah, when you look at it, that they're both first-round draft picks. They got a second and a third. That's a little rough. I wasn't sure that they were going to match just because, the next thing you'll bring up, the next trade was a little weird. But
before we get to the next trade that Edmonton did this past week, I mean, yes, on paper, Edmonton got fleeced. Sure, they're both first-round picks and you get less. However, I think Edmonton is about to be in more cap hell than anything. And so, sure, they get fleeced on this, but this isn't their biggest. They've got bigger problems coming up that they need to be prepared for on a money aspect.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, no doubt about it. The bill comes for Draisaitl and Bouchard next year.
Yeah.
And as we talked about last show, each of them is probably getting an extra $6 million a year. Bouchard's at least getting at least another $6 million.
As they should.
Right. They're both work it. I mean, Bouchard's a top 10 defenseman and runs that power play well, can do it all, and could have been a Blackhawk.
A single tear shed.
But for me, I kind of get why you didn't do it. The Cody Ceci trade, which I'm sure we're going on to next.
Yes.
That made me think that maybe they were going to keep Bouchard, but they just wanted to do a little. Huh?
Holloway?
No, I thought maybe they'd keep Bouchard since they were getting rid of a defenseman.
Oh, okay.
Maybe that was the game plan. I think without adding anything, this team is good enough to be second or third in the Pacific. I think they will load up and get some defensemen at the trade deadline or a little bit before. And all I can tell you is Stan Bowman's pretty good at that. And if you don't think so, think Johnny Oduya.
That is true.
Think Michael Roosevelt.
That is true.
That's 2 top 4 defensemen that played on your 13 and 15 team that he picked up. He's got an eye for it. So I understand that we're all from Chicago and Stan killed us and did some bad things and we're all supposed to just talk trash, but we don't do that on this show. We don't follow. We're innovators. I'm
a firm believer that you can point out the flaws and the faults that people have made and also acknowledge what they've done on the other aspect. It doesn't have to be an either or.
No.
You can acknowledge both.
Yes.
Sure.
So
Dale Talon drafted a lot of guys, but did he also trade Tomo Rutu 5 minutes before the trade deadline? Yeah, but we're going to acknowledge both.
Yeah, and Mike Smith drafted a lot of guys, and he's never talked about.
Exactly.
Poor guy. So I think that's their game plan. If you look at the Oilers team, what's going to make a difference is, can Darnell Nurse play like a top 4 defenseman? And that was your question, no matter whether you match this or not.
Yeah.
That's the big what if. And then does Skinner continue to play like a really good goaltender? So I understand that the optics look bad for Edmonton on a lot of this. But again, it is a team that is unbelievably offensive heavy that can get to the playoffs just doing that. So I expect Stan to make some moves to get at least 2 more defensemen by the trade deadline. So, the only other thing that I thought of is you've got Broberg, you've got Holloway, and maybe another 2nd round pick. Would that have been enough to get Yarsgrove?
Oh.
Now I'm thinking, gosh, that
Askarov ends up in St. Louis.
No, but I mean, if you were Edmonton and you made that trade before this went down, I'm thinking you are in the ballpark to get him, right?
Oh my God!
An up and coming young defenseman and an up and coming young forward. So when you look at that, well, now you think, well, but that was, again, that should have been done before Stan was hired. Then if you were going to do that, that's not really on Stan. But that came into my head today when I was messing around, and I'm like, that probably would have gotten him close. So,
well, I'm kind of glad that didn't happen, which we can lead into the Askarov rumors. For those who are new and who have not been subjected to me talking about the Nashville Predators goalie prospect, Yaroslav Askarov, who played for the Milwaukee Admirals last season. As much as I hate that he is a Nashville prospect, this goalie is incredibly talented. Love the guy. There were rumors that came out that said he wants to trade from Nashville, and he will not be reporting to their AHL team come September. Their AHL team being the Milwaukee Admirals. A lot of people, then me jokingly, but a lot of people were thinking Chicago could be an option. I don't see that happening as much as it would be cool. I'm not really hoping that happens because I don't want to give up the pieces that we would have to get Askarov. But it should be very interesting to see how that plays out. There were light rumors and rumblings that this might be a thing once Nashville locked up UC Saros with that massive contract, but also as they should lock up UC Saros because he's a hell of a goaltender. There were some rumors of like, where does this leave Askarov in the Nashville Predator prospect pipeline? And now this just makes it even more interesting.
Yeah, it really does. They've got a little bit of a situation on their hands. They signed Wedgwood, and that was, part of the problem was. So they've got two goaltenders. They're probably not sending down Wedgwood.
No.
So that brings you to you carry three goaltenders. The kid's not going to like that either, because then he's still not going to play a lot. But he just might have to deal with that.
Well, and what I found interesting, or at least little sound bites that were circulating on Twitter, Barry Trotz never outright denies what's being said. He says, we expect him to be at camp. We expect him to be there. He never denies that there's an issue.
No. He came out and said, we expect him in camp. We expect him to be battling for position. Hey, if he shows in camp that he's the man, we'll put him on the team. Then I'm sure they'd send Wedgwood down. I believe they've got like $4 million cap space. It does not hurt them to send Wedgwood down. Wedgwood is a seasoned player on a 2-way contract. He's going to get paid the same whether he plays in Nashville or Milwaukee. So I think that is a distinct possibility. What I can tell you is if you think you're getting him for cheap, that is not going to happen.
As much as I wish it would, because it would be cool to have him in Chicago because he is incredibly talented. But from a Chicago aspect, as Crusty old guy reminded me when I got a little too excited, it starts with Frank Nazar and Kevin Korchinski. That is the floor in terms of what Nashville's going to ask for to get Askarov. And
I really think so, because you don't have that much talent. And even core, he's not a proven commodity yet.
But technically on an NHL scope, neither is Askarov.
So, I mean, and then you can always look at it another way. Is Askarov that much better than Commesso that you'd be willing to part with two really good prospects? You're saying no, unless you've seen Commesso enough and you're nervous, is the only reason you do that. I don't think they're nervous. He had a 2.6 goals against and a 9.06 save percentage. Not bad.
No.
He played well for a Rockford team that struggled at times. So, yeah, it just doesn't fit for them. Who did I see that I thought it would fit? Oh, I forget now. There was a team that I thought would be a perfect fit for him.
I went with Anaheim, but I always go with Anaheim. But I mean, goalie-wise, they really don't have anything in the pipeline. And I think Askarov could have a perfect spot in his, beginning of the NHL career for him to back up Gibson.
Yes, but Utah has the pieces to send. He would come into Utah with the possibility of being their number one.
Oh.
That's what I was thinking as I was going through our Central Division teams today. Utah's got a ton of young talent. You've got Brayton Hayden, and then you throw in another guy and a second rounder. I think that might get it done. So that's the team that all of a sudden came to mind for me.
That makes sense.
So, again, I would assume the way this completely plays out is Ascroft plays really well and Wedgwood goes down. And there's a lot of this and not a real lot done unless somebody blows their doors off. Because, again, if he's that much of a talent, you're still expecting him to be a backup or a 1B for the next 5 years. So it's interesting.
Very interesting. That's the most I thought we were going to spend on Nashville.
That thought was completely in my mind there, Hockey Princess. That's probably the most this show will ever spend on the Predators.
Another trade that we had, we got Patrick Laine and a 2026 second-round pick going to Montreal, and Jordan Harris is going to be going to the Columbus Blue Jackets. This one, it surprised me on where Laine went, just because, at least from my memory, it was kind of a stint of him wanting to get out of Canada, and now he's back in Canada. But it didn't surprise me in the sense that I didn't think he was going to dress, game one as a Blue Jacket going into this season.
Yeah, number one, it's a little bit of a weird one. Again, he's got plenty of red flags for me, just like for the guy who was traded for before, Pierre, do whatever. The fact that, you keep on bouncing from team to team and the team's always the problem.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two, you've had some issues this year, whether that's mental health, this or that. Do you think the Montreal press is the best spot for you? That's a little frightening, because I am sure they are already talking up the Habs as an unbelievable team right now. You've got a 40-goal scorer coming in. I mean, that is a hard place to play.
Yeah.
So from that aspect, it surprised me. I'm not surprised that Montreal did it. You've got the cap space. He's a good fit. They have talented players to set him up. So, again, he's got another shot. Columbus just gets rid of him. It's another big mistake by Columbus to go on their whole list of other mistakes.
I don't see it as a mistake of, if it's not working, I don't see it as a mistake for Columbus to get rid of him than to just keep him.
Oh, no. The mistake was made. You knew you had to trade Pierre, PLD, whatever he's. And you got a problem back. That usually never works out well when you're swapping problems.
Yeah.
You should probably take a little less and just take a good player. But again, it's live and learn. Laine is a player that you look and start drooling about. He was a number 2 pick. He's got a great shot. He's 6'4"?
Yeah.
I mean, he's your perfect hockey player. But again, as we've discussed on this show, you can't make it in the NHL taking shifts off.
No.
And that's what he's known for. All of a sudden, he just starts floating, and it's too competitive a league to do that. So, again, he's been through a lot. I'm hoping nothing but the best. I hope him and Kirby Dach light it up like crazy in there.
Absolutely.
But we'll see.
All right. We got one signing, not a trade, just a classic signing. Matty Beniers signing a massive 7-year, $49.95 million contract with the Seattle Kraken. I mean, we talked about it last week when we were ranking the Pacific Division, and we've talked about it quite a bit whenever we bring up the Seattle Kraken. Matty Beniers is their guy. It makes sense for Seattle to lock it down, and money-wise for Matty, this makes sense. He is not – I definitely think he is the top player on the Kraken. He's not at, superstar caliber level like the Connors or Sidney Crosby by any means, but he is definitely, Seattle can definitely cough up that much to pay him.
Yeah, I think it was basically the going rate. You looked at Matt Baldy, was a great comparison. He did the same thing right after his entry level, signed for about $7 million.
Yeah.
A young, big kid, plays the right way and
Yeah.
can put the puck in the net. Beniers has probably got more upside in more offensive skill, but
yeah,
it's the way of the NHL right now. That's the starting point for a top 5 pick.
Yeah.
So again, I just want all your listeners to remember that when our top 5 or 7 picks start coming up. It's a lot of money and you've only seen them maybe for a year or two. And it can cost the team dearly if their game goes to crap, or far be it you blow out a knee and you never come back the same. So
right,
that's the downside.
Yeah, but good for Maddie.
Yes.
Take the money. For Seattle, it makes sense. We also have another rumor and rumbling is that your Gabriel Landeskog could step back on the ice for the Colorado Avalanche. For those who don't know, Gabriel Landeskog is the captain for the Colorado Avalanche, has been out for 2 seasons with a knee injury. There's been constant rumors and rumblings in terms of, is he ready yet? Will he ever play? I don't have to go through my normal injury spiel where, I hope that they're not rushing him to come back because he hasn't played for 2 years. So obviously Colorado has been taking this seriously and has not rushed him. Do I think he comes back? No. Would I like to see him come back for Colorado fans just to see him have a couple of games, even, one more game? Sure, of course. I think he had a hell of a career. He's a hell of a hockey player. And I always want to see the guys come back. But 2 seasons is a long time to be off the ice.
It definitely is. Again, he's a tough cookie. He's a fantastic hockey player. I'm not too sure what Colorado does if he does come back. They're going to be $5 million over the cap when he comes back. So they're going to have to make some moves if he comes back. So again, I'll believe that when I see him playing preseason games, which I don't think you'll see.
No.
But I think by about the time, by the start of preseason, you'll get a better understanding if this is actually going to happen or not.
That is, yeah, definitely.
And again, like you stated, there's got to be nothing worse than that's how you go out.
Yeah. All right. Well,
yeah. Before we get to the Central Division,
yes.
Speaking of unsure how you want to go out, Hockey Princess, you have Instagram, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Did you see the Instagram pictures of Surfing Johnny?
Yes.
Tell all of your listeners if they have Instagram. Crusty old guy does not have Instagram. But there's some kick-ass pictures of your captain, Jonathan Toews. He looked pretty badass.
He looks happy.
Yes. And from seeing him surfing and everything else, if he's surfing right now, I just don't see that he's thinking about coming back. So,
and he doesn't need to.
No, but again,
I would love to see it, but he doesn't need to.
And again,
surf. You had a hell of a career and a shitty ending. Thanks, Kyle. Go surf. Go have fun. Do it.
Well, he had a better ending than some. You got to be on the ice for your home fans for what you knew was your final game.
Yeah.
That's pretty special.
Yes.
We got to send him off real well. So he didn't get that awful of a send off. Yes, did I not like the way it was handled? Yeah, but the send off wasn't awful. He got to hear from us. He played a great game. It was very entertaining. So yeah, he seems happy, and that's the name of the game, man.
That's all that matters.
I'm sorry that's only derailment number one, but they just popped back into my head.
That's fair. All right, guys, let's get into it. We've done the Atlantic. We did the Metro. We went out west to the Pacific. Guys, it's time for the most important division of the NHL, which is the Central Division, and our predictions.
Okay.
It's starting at number 8. We might be the same. Gosh, I think we're the same. Guys, it's us! Because guess what? We've been telling you every week since the offseason, really even last season, guys. Yes, we have additions. We have Pat Maroon. We have Tyler Bertuzzi. We have an actual NHL backup backing up Mrazek if his groin gets pulled again. But guess what, friends? We're still really, really bad. And we're going to be really, really bad. But Hockey Princess, we've got all of these additions. Guess what? So is everyone else. So it's us at the bottom.
Yeah, and going through the Central, I did my homework in the last half hour. There wasn't a lot of people that picked up a lot of people besides the one team. But again, I went into my predictions going, I'm not going to put us in the cellar. I go, I don't want to. I'm turning over this completely, oh my God, I'm drinking the K-Day Kool-Aid. But who do I put behind them?
Well, I will say, I do think that we're going to be last. But at the end of last season, you look at the Central Division and the points. It was a 25 point differential between the Arizona Coyotes and the Chicago Blackhawks. I do think we're going to be last, but I do think that is going to be significantly less of a number between 7 and 8.
Yes. And that's what we're telling everybody. This will be a competitive team. You will have to be ready to play. You will, at least if you're a good team, have to play half the game against them. But they won't be out of games midway through the second period like they were last year.
Right.
This team is much better. They're going to grow. The problem is there's just a lot of other good hockey teams. Again, that's the problem with the teardown rebuild is you have so many steps to go. You've got 3 steps before you even think that you're a playoff contender.
Yeah.
And then maybe another step, and then another 3 steps after that if you're thinking about being a cup contender. It's just looking at the other teams, I couldn't figure out somebody that I'd put behind them. So we're 8.
Yeah, we are 8. Who do you have at number 7?
This is all really weird. This is where I've got the Winnipeg Jets.
Ooh. Explain.
They haven't done anything.
Okay.
So how are they going to get better? Did they make the playoffs last year?
They were number 2 in the Central Division.
God, how was that possible?
Connor Hellebuck.
Right. I just do not see. I see a fall off. My God, I've got a huge fall off, don't I?
A big fall off.
Yeah, I might have. Crusty old guy might have really wet the bed on that one. But I just defensively, they're average. They've got no standout offensive defenseman. If they're really thinking Josh Morrissey is that, I don't believe it. They've got 2 lines that are deep. They do not have a superstar. Do you consider Mark Scheifele a superstar? Yes, my woman. Good night, my woman. My woman has to take the 5 o'clock train, so she's going to bed. Everybody. Kyle Connor, is he a superstar? No. So going through it and looking at the other teams, I'm like, they have one superstar. It's Connor Hellebuck. I mean, as we've talked about throughout all the rest of the predictions, that's where you want your superstar. I really don't think this is going to come to fruition, but that's Crusty old guy threw this together, and that's what he's sticking with.
All right. My number 7, and I swear this is not me being petty. I just think that they're not in a complete Chicago rebuild, but I think they don't have a sense of who they are as a team at this point with the current roster that they have. And I do see them falling off a little bit. And that's your St. Louis Blues. Yeah, maybe. Yes, they got Broberg, they got Holloway. I don't think it's enough. And also, no offense, but you have Jordan Binnington in net.
I will give you that. I will give you that.
We've talked about with the other division predictions how a great goaltender can erase a lot of problems, but a very mediocre goaltender can hurt you a heck of a lot more and definitely outweigh the talent that you have on your forward end or even your defensive end.
I've got them a lot higher, but I'm not going to disagree with you.
That's fine. You got Winnipeg at 7. This is going to get weird.
Yeah, we've basically we're dialed in for the first 3, and I have a feeling this one is whacked as a potato. So I don't know. I'll talk more about the Blues when I get to them. So, but I can't say you're wrong.
And is the floor? I mean, is the ceiling there for them to jump higher? Absolutely. I just realistically don't see it. They could have a season like how Edmonton did this year, where they slump for a little bit and then they soar. As someone from Chicago, I really hope that they don't. But I just realistically, on paper, I don't see it being as successful as some other teams could be, like comparing to roster. I just don't see it as much as other teams in the Central.
Yeah, again, you might be completely right on that one too, and Crusty old guy might be an idiot. It's an awful lot to expect Binnington to play well all year. That's a fact. Jeez.
Well, and I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Jordan Binnington, but Binnington aside, I do think it's an awful lot of pressure on any goaltender that is not in the Swayman, Shesterkin, Sorokin, Vasilevsky, Bobrovsky category. If you're not like anyone that's under that tier in terms of goaltenders, it is a lot, regardless of Binnington or, DeCorden for Seattle. Anyone that's not a part of the, you are the number one guy. Sure, it's an immense amount of pressure. And it is really, really hard to play the whole season.
Yeah, but with him, again, you take away that cup year and he's been average to dog shit. So you're probably right. I'm probably wrong. Oh, jeez. That would be a first. Okay, let's move on. Because mine even gets weirder.
How does yours get weirder?
It just does.
I'm very concerned. All right. So number 6. I have the Minnesota Wild.
Hey, we got the same one.
I don't think they're in a complete slump by any means, but I do think a lot of their younger pieces either aren't at the Minnesota Wild level right now. They're sitting in Iowa, or their main guys are a bit older. Yes, you have Kirill Kaprizov, who is going to be entertaining to watch any game of the season. That's a fact. I think goaltending, it's a bit shaky. I think they are one of the few where it's like, yes, the ceiling, there's a lot of potential to be higher, but I don't think that they are what they were a couple of years ago, nor do I think that they are as competitive as they were a couple of years ago. I think some guys have left with free agency, some guys have left with some silly trades, and it's definitely put multiple holes in their roster.
Yeah, I'm basically in the same thought process as you. They got 4 good defensemen. Brock Faber is a superstar in the making.
Yes.
Krill is a phenomenal player. Matt Baldy, as I've talked about a lot, I love him. After that, everything kind of gets average. You're expecting Zuccarello at 36 to skate on a top line. You're expecting,
and not to say that he can't do it, but I think, doing it for a couple of games and doing it for 82 games, there's a significant difference.
Right. And you're also saying that you're still going to have Ryan Hartman centering your top line. I like some of Ryan's game and everything, but that's a mid 6 at tops, probably a bottom 6 on a really good team. Have you seen enough from Gustafsson? No. Do you think Fleury at the age of 59?
Not 59.
Oh, he's 39. So that's why I've got them down here. And for those people wondering, how do you let things get that way? They've got 15 mil in dead cap space because of Parisi and Suter. This is the last year that this is huge. So this is going to be their rough year. Their GM knows that.
And I think this is one of the few teams just in the NHL that are at the bottom as of right now in terms of standings and predictions. But I don't think they're going to suffer for a while. I think the Minnesota Wild GM is hockey smart. I think, like you said, this is just a bad couple of years with the dead cap space. I do think that they have the ability to bounce back quicker than some other teams that are in the bottom of any of the divisions.
Yeah, and they'll use their same formula that they used last year. They play pretty well defensively. They're pretty solid. Stay in games. Ride Kirill's back in the last 5 minutes of a game. And he's that good. He's one of those players that we talk about. Everybody who's on the ice with him automatically becomes a +1 or +2 better because they're playing with that guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're just it's a weird situation for them. Could they move up or down? Sure. They can't. The Central's packed. There's a lot of talent there. So.
Yeah. All right. Number 5. I have the Utah Hockey Club. I know you have them a lot higher because of how low you had Winnipeg. I do think that they jumped. Yes.
Yeah, because I'm gonna switch.
No, you made your prediction.
I haven't made a prediction yet.
Okay.
So I'm switching the 2 teams that I had before. So I will have St. Louis
as number 5.
As number 5.
So number 5, I have the Utah Hockey Club. I do think that they make a splash. They make a jump. They're not as bad and as sad to watch as when they were in Arizona last year. I don't think it's enough to make it to playoff contention, but I think this is the year they take their first bigger step that we've seen in a while for this team. They made a splash at the draft with their draft picks, as well as the pieces that they picked up with key trades and going into free agency. So I do think that they make a splash, and it's definitely going to shake up the Central Division a little bit. But I think this year they don't make it to playoff contention, and then I think next year they possibly could.
Well, I think fifth in the Central is possibly playoff contention. I think 5 teams could go from the Central, maybe. So, I've got St. Louis again. You were questioning why to me, and trying to figure out why now. um, they've got some talent. They've got a lot of really good mid-6 players. So second liners, third liners. Holloway will help. He will supply some offense. They are 4D deep. Again, it's Binnington, and can he find his game? And what I mean by that is you just need him to be a goaltender. So number one for him is he has to get right mentally. This you're going to fight everybody. It takes too much out of you and you lose focus, and that's what he does. He throws away games. If he can just not throw away games, there's enough veteran talent on that team, I believe, to make some noise. I expect the continued bounce back from Kyrou. And again, Steve Thomas is the other guy that Thomas has got to play like an $8 million player, and he hasn't yet. So I'm figuring he will. I don't know exactly why. So
that's fair. All right, number 4, I have your Winnipeg Jets.
Whoa.
Fall off a little bit, not as much as Crusty Old Guy believes, because in my heart, I really just can't see, nor do I want to see Connor Hellebuck falling off that much. Because as a Blackhawk fan, I'm still a really big Connor Hellebuck fan. He helped me many years with my fantasy teams, so I'm a fan. I do think they fall off a little bit. As we talked about with other divisions and other teams, great goaltending can mask up some problems. I do think that is definitely the case in Winnipeg. Not to say that the talent in Winnipeg is bad by any means. I think that they have a lot of great guys, but they're on the older side. They're a little few and far between compared to how especially the top 3 rosters are stacked in the Central. And so I think they still make it to the playoffs, but I think this is the beginning of the slow slip down for the Winnipeg Jets. I hope not, because I like Connor, but I think they just need more and younger.
Yeah,
it'd be great if you could just call up Rutger McGroarty. He's sitting in Ann Arbor right now.
Yeah. Again, Crusty Old Guy has preached on this show how important goaltending is. How he's got one of the top 5 goaltenders in the league finishing second to last, I do not know. I really do not know. But it's more of a feeling.
Gotta go off vibes for one of these divisions. That's what I've been doing.
Exactly. They lost Ehlers. Or no, they didn't lose Ehlers, did they?
No, Ehlers was in the rumoring pieces with the McGroarty trade. We're figuring Ehlers is a part of it, but Ehlers didn't actually leave.
So, yeah, they're a pretty talented ball club, but I have your Utah no-names.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we could come up with a better name, I think.
Oh, I'm hoping for Utah Yetis.
The Utah Yetis. Not the Mormons? Okay, that's a little rude. I've got to tell you, I was looking through this forward package and I was starting to salivate. There's a lot of really good players. There's probably not a complete superstar. Is Logan Cooley a superstar? Could be. I don't know. But just the 3 young kids. You have Dylan Gunther, Doan's kid and Cooley. Not to mention you have Cruz, you've got Keller, you've got Schmaltz, you've got Heaton. You've got Nick Buttigieg, who's a fine player. I just think they're stacked. Their question mark will be Sergachev. Is he completely heavy? I mean, healthy? Can he play? He's going to have to play at least half the game. But they're about 4D solid. And again, this brings me to the point why do I have them up that high? They really don't have a goaltender. So, until they make that trade and they get Askarov, but that was a whim. And really, I had the Blues at 4 and them at 5, but then you made me switch the Blues down further through Biddington's shame. I threw them down there, so I've got Utah going up to 4, and I've got to believe if Utah's at 4, they are a playoff team.
I have a question.
Yes.
For your opinion. You said you were going through the roster and you're beginning to salivate.
Yes.
Because of how good. What do you think the difference is between, I compare it to the Rangers, not this year, but the year prior, where you look at it on paper and you have all of these great hockey players and you can't make it work on the ice. You have potentially Patrick Kane, Artemi Panarin, and Vladimir Tarasenko on a line together and they can't score. So what would you find is the difference between situations like that where on paper it looks great? You have all of these great guys that have the ability to put up points, but it doesn't work. But it could work for Utah. Where do you find the difference?
Well, I don't really, because the Rangers on paper are a cup team.
Okay.
The Rangers on paper, I don't worry about them making the playoffs.
No, I just mean in terms of guys that in theory could put up massive points and they don't make it to the final round because they can't make it work. All-star teams fail because they rely solely on individual talent, sort of thing.
Okay there, coach.
Because I think that's what scares me.
Do you want to go through the rest of the speech?
Because I think that's what scares me or I use it or is kind of a deterrent for me when I see rosters that, like, on paper, all of these guys are great, but the NHL has plenty of those teams and they still struggle.
Yeah, but I believe struggles from the regular season to struggles in the playoffs are two completely different animals.
Okay.
That's basically where it is. You see Toronto always struggling in the playoffs. You see the Rangers always struggling. Are they talented? Yes, they've got some of the best talent around, but the playoff game is different. I look at the Utah team and just they're moving into a new place. There's a new fan base. A lot of young, skilled forwards. I think something clicks and they ride it. And sometimes skilled young players are too stupid to know they should be losing.
All right, makes sense.
That would be your 09 Blackhawks, and that was through the playoffs. They were too stupid to know they weren't supposed to be winning. They were just riding the wave. I just think it's a hunch that I think they catch something. There's enough talent there to make noise. They're good enough defensively. I think their goaltender pulls it off. Why? I've got nothing to base up the goaltender thing with. But forward-wise, I love the Doan kid. I love Cooley.
Yeah.
Schmaltz is still a very good hockey player. Clayton Keller's a very good hockey player. And they've got another 3 in there that are all first-round draft picks that are very good. I think with the move, the pump, the circumstance, I think they just get off.
Everything comes together
to begin with, and they ride it.
All right.
Could they be second to last? Yeah. But this is my gut division.
All right. Number 3 for me, gonna be real, listeners. This is out of pettiness. Um, it's a shocker that I put them up this high. I just physically cannot put this team in the 1 or 2 spot. Also, because the teams that I have in the 1 or 2 spot, I just genuinely like a heck of a lot more than this team. So, number 3, I have your Nashville Predators. This is out of spite. Yes, I know that they have key pieces, key additions, whatever. I think they're going to be significantly more competitive going into this season than they were last season. I don't think that they're going to struggle as much or have, some X amount of hiccups, as many as they did this past season. I don't think they're going to have as many going into this season. They have some great additions, but I refuse to say that they're going to be number 1 or number 2 in the division.
All right, I guess I shouldn't continue to switch like crazy. So, if I'm not going to switch on this one, I have the I have the Dallas Stars at number 3. Why? Again, that one I don't know. I would assume I have the Preds ahead of Dallas for the simple fact that I love Ryan O'Reilly. I might like Ryan O'Reilly more than I like Jason.
Wow.
Yes.
I don't. What? That's a shocker.
Dallas didn't lose much. They lost Joe Pa, which will be a locker room problem. Great leadership, but you've got Jamie Benn. You've got Tyler Seguin, and you've got the other 2 kids. So could they easily be 2? Sure. I don't know exactly. Again, just another hunch thing. But does Dallas have a top 5 goaltender? Still unsure. Ott is awesome. Is he top 5? I don't know. Is their defense enough? Is Dumba a number 3 defenseman? I am unsure of that. You can make a lot of noise in the playoffs running 4 D-men. You can't get away with that all year. But forward-wise, there's a ton of skill there. Holy cow. But I'm thinking the drop-off is for Ben and Seguin, and that will be the difference maker, and Duchesne. So, and then the kids will be asked to carry it, and it might be a little too much for the kids. They're still going to make the playoffs. Could they go farther than the Preds? Sure. We'll see what happens at the trade deadline. But I've got them at 3. They're in the playoffs. I don't think they care if they're 2 or 3. They're one of those teams that is good enough. They don't need home ice. They need to be healthy.
They very much proved that they do not need home ice this past postseason.
Yeah, they just need to be healthy. And they'll use the regular season to get some of their other players ready. The Harley kid looked really good defensively. If he can grow the way he's grown his last couple of years, that becomes huge for them. Of course, they are going to make a deal for another defenseman at the trade deadline too. So it's like splitting hairs. The top 3 teams,
yeah,
they're all very good. Dallas they're loaded. So I don't know exactly why I have them at 3, but you have to rank these somehow. And again, the Central Division was the gut division.
That's fair. Number 2, I have your Colorado Avalanche. They're going to be great. McKinnon's going to be great. Makar is going to be great. Like we talked about earlier with the possible Landeskog returning. I think if Landeskog does return and they get the cap situation in order, I think it only helps them. I think, could they be 3? Sure. Could they be 1? I think at the end of the day, that really comes down to goaltending, because as we saw in the postseason, Georgiev can be great, or he could be very much not great. So I think, and like Crusty old guy said, the top three in this Central Division are extremely competitive. They could be in any order, and it would not surprise me. But I really don't. I see Colorado just being number 2. I don't see them being number 1, but I don't think they slide by much if they're knocked down to 3. I just think the roster that they have, it's been working for them, and they have no problem running it again. Why not? Nothing's really changed, and it works.
Yeah. For me, I've got the Predators at number 2.
Couldn't put them at number 1.
No, couldn't put them at number 1. But let's go over it. They picked up Stamkos.
Yes.
We saw the flaws in Stamkos on 5-on-5, but still, I now have a power play of, on one side, Steven Stamkos. On the other side, Philip Forsberg, Ryan O'Reilly in front of the net, and Yossi running the whole power play. I am saying this can rival anybody's power play.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Even Edmonton?
Yes. Well, yeah, probably not Edmonton's, but yeah. I mean,
that certainly will be very entertaining, is to watch the two of them in their power plays. Because I think now that you break it down, I do think Edmonton and Nashville have the most solid.
And again, if they want to, they run 5 forwards on their power play, and Marchessault's the other forward. That's a pretty potent power play. But Steven Stamkos is a goal scorer. Philip Forsberg is a freaking goal scorer. They can put in the puck in the net with a little bit of space. And Philip Forsberg, again, is one of those players that I just really enjoy watching, and everybody's heard me swoon over Ryan O'Reilly. I just think they also have a top 5 goaltender. Defensively, you picked up Brady Shea. So they've got all the pieces. Did they have the depth? That I am unsure of. This is an old team. This is a team ready to go now. That's why Trotz has decided whatever happens with Askarov happens, but this is a team that's set up to win in the next 2 years. And by win, I mean going all the way. I don't believe they're deep enough to do that. But you trade Askarov for a couple good other players, then they might be
an animal.
Exactly. So I see them gelling, because this will be a team that plays the right way. They'll play the right way all year. So again, as we've talked about, the top 3 you can mix and match if you wanted to. All right.
Number 1.
I
have the Dallas Stars. Because like you said, when you broke down the roster, did they lose much? No, they lost Joe Pavelski. So they finished number 1 last year. They didn't lose a ton. Similar to Vancouver, I don't see why they can't run it again. They still have depth. They still have an incredible amount of forward goal scoring talent. Ottinger, is he top 5? No, but I'm a firm believer that Ottinger can only get better. And I think he does that this year. Also, could have been a Blackhawk. Could have been great. I don't see them slipping because not much of the roster has changed. So I still think that they are as solid and consistent as they have been. And I think their ifs are less than the other two of the top three. They definitely do have ifs, but I think it's smaller pieces are what ifs compared to the other two.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you on it. I've got them falling for the reasons that I stated. I see a fall off in Sagan and Ben, but they've got a 3 or 4 very good young forwards. You have Rope Hintz, Jason Robertson. You have Wyatt Johnson, who is on the cusp of being a superstar. And you got that little friggin' rookie from last year, Stankovic. Yeah, the Stank, who, is anybody who watches the game, you fall in love with a player like that who's not supposed to be there and blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, I've got them 3. Could they be 1? Sure. I mean, Ottinger's a very good goaltender. And like you stated, is only going to get better.
And I didn't think of this until now, as someone who pays too much attention to AHL rosters. Injuries happen. Injuries do happen. Guys get called up from the AHL. I do think out of the top 3 teams, be it Dallas, Colorado, and Nashville, Dallas has far more to pull from out of the Texas Stars than Colorado and Nashville do in terms of forwards and defensemen. Yes, if Askarov reports to Milwaukee, that's a whole different animal for Nashville. But the Texas Stars are so annoyingly stacked that I think if there are injuries for Dallas, it's still a concern because they aren't, at the superstar caliber level that whomever got injured is. But it's significantly less scary for the Dallas Stars compared to Colorado and Nashville.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you there. They're probably the deeper of the 3, but for me, I have your Colorado Avalanche being number 1. That's a pretty power packed team there.
That is a very power packed team.
They got a lot of pieces. Nathan McKinnon is one of the top 3 players in the league. Mikko Rantanen is probably one of the top 10. I believe another year of Casey Middlestat being their second line center will be huge. Mm-hmm. I really like Miles Wood. Does Druid have another decent year? That I am unsure of. But defensively, oh my goodness. Their top 4 D-men have to be the best in the league. Cale Makar, I believe, is probably the most valuable player in the league. Just because he's on the ice a lot more than Connor McDavid. He's unbelievably offensively, and he plays fantastic D. And then you have Taves, Girardi, and Madsen, who are all darn good defensemen. And they've got Kelvin DeHaan now, so that's like a gimme. As you pointed out, goaltending, goaltending is a little iffy. But if Langestad comes back and plays like he did before, good grief.
Yeah.
And that is a stud forward. That is your perennial power forward. Do they make noise in the playoffs? That I am unsure of. The reason they're number 1 to me is because it's regular season. It's very difficult to fly into Colorado. People say it all the time, and play in that altitude for 60 minutes. Players get gassed. Come playoff time, they're there for 4 or 5 days. They're getting somewhat accustomed to it. But during the regular season, you fly in. If you're lucky, you're maybe there the day before. But that's it, and then you play. So that's why their home record is just such dynamite. I say that continues in the regular season. I would assume we'll be adjusting things with those 3 come our playoff predictions.
Yeah.
It'll depend on who gets added. But those 4 D-men are just unbelievable. And the whole team plays the right way. they can hold any lead and they can come back on anyone. So that's why I've got them one.
Yeah.
I just think it's a hard place to play in the regular season. So
yeah, definitely. That's our Central Division predictions, friends. We made it through the Atlantic, the Metro, the Pacific, and now the Central. And that is a wrap for this week. Guys, you're not going to see Crusty Old Guy for like 2 weeks.
boo.
I know. Like I've said for the past couple of episodes, we still have episodes while I am gone. We'll have our favorite Canadian on talking about, CHL stuff, Montreal Canadian stuff. We really don't know yet. And then we're going to have our super fan Ginny on asking us hockey questions. That should be fun. And then I'll be back, and then it'll be so close to training camp, guys. We're almost done. We're almost there. But Crusty will be gone for a little bit. Be sad.
I don't know how they're going to survive.
I don't know either.
If you hit that like button a lot, maybe we all stay here.
Maybe.
Or maybe not. Yeah, and I would tell your listeners, definitely for the Canadian boy, I would give that a listen. Hockey is king in Canada, and Adam knows a shit ton about it. So it will be a great listen.
Yeah, you heard it from Crusty Old Guy, folks. And just as a reminder, make sure to hit that like and subscribe on either Spotify, Apple Podcast, or YouTube, however you watch or listen to us on a weekly basis. And we will see you guys in a bit. Oh, yes. Sorry, Krusty's got one more thing.
Right. And buy some merch. We have like Hockey Princess stickers, and start sticking them on people's stuff that you know. Go to work, put a sticker on somebody's thermos.
There you go.
On the subway, put a sticker on somebody's jacket. That won't get you hurt. All right, I'm done.
All right, that is all, and we will talk at you guys in a bit.